everyone, it's Abby with the Bead Place and beadplace.net, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a fun and easy, very quick wire wrapped word bracelet using some 18 gauge wire and some seed beads. Let's get started. Okay, so we are using about 18 inches of 18 gauge silver plated wire. We are also using 2 different colors of size 8 seed beads. You can use whatever beads you want, just make sure that they are a snug fit on your 18 gauge wire. We're also using these cute little hex beads, faceted little seed beads from Tierra Cast. The tools that I'm using are pretty basic. I'm using a flush cutter, a round nose pliers, a chain nose pliers. Now your round nose pliers is what a lot of people call like a needle nose. It's just, you know, rounded. I also have a chain nose pliers, and this is a pointed flat nose pliers like this. So it's just a basic chain nose pliers. Just make sure whatever pliers you're using don't have the crisscrosses or serrations on the inside. Now, I also have an optional tool here. This is a nylon jaw pliers. This can just help you straighten your wire out if you get kinks in it, or it can help you kind of harden the wire, like this part of the wire on the bracelet when we're done with it. But this is not entirely necessary. I just might use this as we go on. Okay, let's get started. So you might be thinking 18 gauge, 18 inches. That's a lot of wire. That's some sturdy wire. Well, that's intentional. We're gonna eat up a lot of the wire with our wrapping. And then also we want it to be sturdy enough to be a bracelet on its own. So 18 gauge, 18 inch, it's perfect. So I think what I'm gonna do is my name. So you can see on this bracelet, I wrote Parker, which is my daughter's name. I made this for her, but I think I'm gonna start with my name. Okay, so what I like to do is find nearly the middle of the wire and then go over. The longer your word is, the more wire you're gonna eat up, so just eyeball it. I don't like to start in the middle of the word and work out. A lot of people like to do that when they're wire wrapping letters, but I really don't like to do that. It just throws me off a little bit. Now, if you can write in cursive, you will do wonders with this. If you can't write in cursive, I would recommend writing your word out first. So what I'm gonna start with is my chain nose pliers, and I'm just gonna make a gentle curve up. Now, you can either use the pliers to bend up, or you can grab here on the wire and use your fingers to bend up. It's totally up to you. Now I'm just gonna straighten the end of my wire out a little bit, and I am going to start my A. So I like to do a big loop for my A, and I'm gonna bend the wire up over the top of the very back of my round nose pliers. Now, if you think about when you do cursive, normally with an A, you'd go up and then come back down and up. But instead of doing that, I'm just gonna bring it around to do a complete circle. And that's gonna make it a lot easier for me. So I'm gonna bring the wire down like that. I'm gonna grab down here very gently. Anytime you're grabbing with the round nose pliers, you're really gonna need to make sure that you're not gripping too tight, because if you grip too tight, you're gonna get dents in your work. So you can see how I have the start of an A now. And then I'm gonna bring it back around. I'm gonna grab like this so I can match the size. And see how I'm just kind of laying it right next to that other wire to match the size. Just like that. So I've got the start of my A. Now what I'm gonna do is grab right here near the bottom of my A with my round nose pliers, not all the way back here because I'm making a smaller loop. And I'm just gonna bend up. And see, I've got a bigger A. So an uppercase A, a capital A. Now, I'm showing you the letters in my name. Obviously, yours are gonna be different, but this is just kind of some basic ideas so that we can make this a little easier for you. So I'm gonna do a bee next. So I'm gonna use the very tip of my pliers because I'm gonna make a small loop. I'm gonna try to hold this in an angle so that you can see it. I've got my filming rig set up differently because I'm trying to give you a close-up, but also let you see the whole thing. So there we go. Alrighty. Now I can see that my B is a little bit taller than my A, and I don't like that. So instead of grabbing with my round nose pliers to kind of crank it a little bit smaller, I'm actually going to use my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to tighten it a little bit like this. And see how I'm just working a gentle curve into it? See how it makes it a little smaller? Then I can go in and kind of straighten everything out and bend that back open a little bit so that I can get a smaller loop. So there we have the start of a B. So now I'm going to go back in. I'm going to hold about right there, and I'm going to bend this up and back. Now, I can do the classic look of a B, where I would loop here and come back up into my second form of my B, but I'm gonna make this easy for myself. So instead of making a really tight bend to form that B, I'm gonna just do this and make it kind of like a hybrid cursive hybrid print B, and see how much easier that is. And it's also a little bit easier to read. Now, as we're bending, I like to keep adjusting things to make sure that we can actually read it well and to make sure we're going in the correct angle. And I'm gonna put my round nose pliers back in there to bend this wire up a little bit more. So remember, we've got long ends here. We also might want to consider wearing glasses or safety glasses on this project, because with long ends, we want to protect our eyes. So I'm going to go back up and then back down. Now you can decide to kind of switch your wire back behind on this one. So you can either, well, you can switch and do your wire behind on this one rather than in front like we did over here. And that might kind of even out the direction of our letters. So bring it in closer. You see how I came up in front here, and on this one I'm coming behind? That's an option too. I'm showing that you can kind of change the direction to keep your work more flat rather than kind of stacking up and towards yourself. Totally up to you. I would recommend consistency though. So just because I'm doing it on this sample to show you, that doesn't mean that you need to do that on yours. I'm just showing you that you can make those decisions on your own projects to ensure that you're happy with your work. So you can see I've got two B's here. I'm gonna go in and tighten this one so that it looks a little bit more similar to the last one, and bend this wire back a little bit. So the key really is to just make sure you're using the right pliers for the right kind of work. Anytime you're making loops, you want to use your round nose pliers almost like it's a mandrel, but you never want to squeeze too tight with your round nose pliers because that's going to put some dents in your work. There we go, A, B, B. And now here's the fun part. We're going to do an I. So what we're going to do for the I, we've got two choices. We can either just go straight up and then straight back down, or we can attempt an I with a dot. And I think because I've got you guys here, I'm going to attempt an I with a dot. To attempt an I with a dot, what I'm going to do is hold right where I want my dot to be. I'm going to figure that this is going to be the start of my dot. So I'm going to almost kind of crank my wire like this. You see that? So I'm just going to gently bend my wire. I'm going to bring the wire around like that. And then I'm going to bring my eye back down. So we've got an eye. Gonna hold it flat there and then bring the end of the wire back up. So there we go. And you can of course tighten that if you want or not. It's up to you. So I'm gonna round this out just a little bit so it looks a little bit more natural and bend everything to my liking. But see how fun that is and how easy that is? So now what I'm gonna do is just kind of manipulate everything so that I'm happy with the angle. And I'm going to kind of check to make sure I don't have any areas that are a little bit flimsy or weak. And if I do, it might seem counterintuitive, but if you have areas that are kind of flimsy feeling, just gently bend them back and forth a little bit. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna gently harden the wire so that it'll be less likely to kind of pull out or press in while you're wearing it. Now you can, if you have a nylon mallet, a rubber mallet, or a rawhide mallet, you can go in and gently hammer over this, but I'm trying to keep this a very beginner-friendly project. So I'm giving you these tips that you can do with just your hands. But just know you can go in with a hammer and kind of make things a little bit harder. There we go. Okay, so next we are going to have some fun with some beads. So I'm gonna pour out some of my little hex beads and some of my little seed beads. And this part, I like to do little sections of 2 and 3. As you can see on this one, like that. But I like to start on one side, always with one of my little hex beads, like that. And I think that it's important to make sure you've got kind of a sharper bend at the beginning and the end to ensure that your beads don't go up into your letters at all. So I think starting with a little bead, one of the little hex beads, makes your work look a little bit more finished, and it kind of differentiates your letters from your colorful seed beads. So I'm gonna string 2 of my little seed beads. And if you notice that your seed beads don't want to fit on your wire, likely it's because your wire might be kinked somewhere. So if it fits on the end but doesn't go all the way down, you want to make sure that you can straighten out your wire. If you don't have a nylon pliers, you can actually use your fingers and some cloth or like some paper towels to kind of act like a buffer between your fingers and the wire, and it'll help straighten it out a little bit. I'm just gonna keep stringing little sections like this, where I've got 2 of my blue seed beads, a little faceted bead, then 3 of my green seed beads, and I'm just gonna work all the way around until I'm happy with the fit. Now, this is a cuff style bracelet, so it's pretty adjustable, but you do just want to keep in mind that cuff style bracelets should fit tight, and it's okay if there's an opening at the back. So don't go overboard on your bead stringing, because it's difficult to get a cuff bracelet on and off that the back overlaps. And you don't want to put too much stress on the letters here, because eventually with a lot of wear they could mold out of shape. So I'm going to keep working on this side until I'm happy with the length, and I'll come back and show you what I've done. Okay, so I have strung a section of beads to my liking, and I'm fairly confident that it'll be a good fit for me. I always want to err on the larger side than the smaller side, and I want to show you something real quick before I finish this off. Now, I could try to give you some pointers for the number of beads that you could use to make it fit you. Like, I've got a 6-inch wrist, so I know that this fits me. However, the words that you're going to do are going to be different sizes. Like, you see different letters, different size pliers are going to give you different size word sections. So you'll really just have to kind of work with it to make sure that it's going to fit you the way you want it to fit. Now that I have my beads here at a size that I'm happy with. I'm finishing with one of the little hex beads. I always like to start and finish with a hex bead. It makes it look more finished. And what I'm gonna do is grab my round nose pliers, and I'm gonna hold it about midway on my round nose pliers, which is gonna give me about a 3 or a 4 millimeter loop. So everybody's pliers are a little bit different, but just know that I'm about midway, which is about 3 to 4 millimeters. So I am going to bend my wire up around my pliers and then underneath them to make a loop like this. So my loop tail should come right over where my bead ends. It's okay if it's not perfect because we're about to adjust it. So I'm gonna take my flush cutter with the flat side of the cutter facing my work, and I'm gonna cut. Always remember to either grab what you're cutting off or cover it so you don't have any flying tail ends, which could cause eye injuries or a messy floor. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to kind of tilt my loop so that it is kind of centered on my wire. So I'm gonna tilt it back like that, and then I'm gonna close it just like that. So it makes a nice finished look. You can add a little charm there if you'd like, but I like to keep them simple. And then I'm gonna repeat the same thing on the other side. So I am going to string the same amount of beads, and then I'll come back and show you how to shape it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is twist my loops to make sure that they are flat and kind of parallel with the surface of my letters. So how I do that is I grab across the entire loop with my chain nose pliers and just twist it. I like to make sure that I'm bracing down here so that I don't bend my word out of shape. There we go. I've got them both twisted to the flatness that I like. And now what I'm gonna do is just bend it into a bracelet shape with my fingers. So I like to kind of brace the word right here on either side, like the outer letters. And then I just kind of pinch the wire here into an oval shape and manipulate it with your hands to get a shape that you'd like. Now, if it feels a little bit too flimsy, like it won't hold when you're wearing it, do that trick again where I said just kind of wiggle it back and forth in all those different flimsy places. You can kind of bend this wire back and forth a little bit to harden it. What you're doing now is a technique called work hardening. And so when you're bending metal back and forth, there's something that happens to the molecules that make up the metal. It kind of squishes them and does not leave room for flexibility between the molecules. And so it gets harder and harder to bend it with each bend. So if you think about a paper clip, when you bend it back and forth so many times, it gets harder and harder to bend, and then eventually it breaks. What we're doing here is bending it so that it's getting harder, but we're stopping before we get to the point where it'll break. I also should mention that I like to recommend that you start with a half hard temperament or a hard temperament wire for this project. A wire that's softened, like dead soft, will probably be a little bit too soft to begin with. You can get by with using a craft wire, like a softened craft wire in 18 gauge, but you want to make sure to work harden it even before you get started. We do have kits available for this project if you want to make sure you're getting the right wire. We have a great German wire, very thick silver plate over copper, thick gold plate over copper, plain copper, and then we also have brass wire. As I said earlier, the brass wire is a little bit harder to work with, so if you're a beginner, I would avoid the brass kit, but the silver, the copper, and the gold are all the same kind of half hard temperament hardness that you will enjoy working with. We've got a lot of different color options for these kits, for the seed beads, and then also for the metal color as well. And Yeah, I appreciate everybody for watching. There will be links to the tools and the products that we used in this video in the description below. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram. We put out new content all the time. Join our Facebook group. Our Facebook page is called The Bead Place, so make sure you've liked us over there, and then also join our group, which is also called The Bead Place. I just want to take a minute to mention that I really do truly appreciate everyone's kindness and support. Being a small business owner in a pandemic is not for the faint of heart. It is definitely, it's definitely a lot of work, but we definitely would not be here without you and your support. So if you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comments below. We've been getting overwhelmed really with orders and questions lately, so we appreciate your patience if it takes us a while to get back to you. If you need immediate assistance, please feel free to call us at the store. We're happy to answer questions over the phone or send us an email, and we're happy to help. But yeah, I'll comb through the comments every now and then and answer questions to the best of my ability, and we'd love to see pictures of your finished projects. So please post pictures in our Facebook group. Feel free to send it to us on Messenger or email. Yeah, and thank you.